The salt-laced air, warm and heavy with the scent of jasmine, was the first thing that truly registered. Elara stepped from the air-conditioned car into the embrace of the twilight, feeling it settle over her like a lover's silk scarf. Ahead, the ancient stones of Villa Althea glowed with a soft ochre light, framed by unruly bougainvillea that cascaded in vibrant purple and fuchsia torrents. After months of sterile cityscapes and the relentless hum of ambition, this place felt less like a destination, and more like a long-forgotten memory, finally unearthed. She had come seeking a sanctuary, a quiet corner where the clamor of her own expectations could finally recede. The villa, perched on a cliff overlooking the shimmering, bruised violet expanse of the Aegean, promised just that. It was a place chosen for its remoteness, its storied past, and the almost mythical tranquility whispered about in the travel blogs she'd scoured. She needed to breathe again, to feel the sun on her skin without the weight of scrutiny, to remember the woman beneath the meticulously crafted professional facade. A low, resonant sound, like the deep thrum of a cello, broke the silence. It was the villa's bell, pulled by a thick rope that hung beside the massive carved oak door. Before the echoes could fully fade, the door swung inward with a groan of ancient hinges, revealing a silhouette framed by the warmly lit interior. He stood there, broad-shouldered and undeniably masculine, his presence filling the doorway with an unexpected intensity. His hair, dark and slightly tousled, seemed to catch the last rays of the sun, hinting at streaks of something lighter, like burnished bronze. He wasn't overtly handsome in the conventional, polished sense, but there was a rugged artistry to his features, a strong jawline, a straight nose, and eyes that, even from this distance, held an arresting depth. He wore a simple linen shirt, open at the collar, revealing a glimpse of tanned skin and the subtle curve of muscle beneath. His trousers were a dark, comfortable material, and he was barefoot. Elara. His voice was a low timbre, a rich, earthy sound that seemed to resonate deep within her. It was surprisingly gentle, given his imposing frame. She nodded, a little breathlessly. "Yes, I'm Elara Vance." A slow, easy smile spread across his face, crinkling the corners of his eyes and softening the lean planes of his cheeks. It was a smile that promised warmth, and perhaps a touch of mischief. "Welcome to Villa Althea, Elara. I'm Rhys. I was beginning to think the sea had swallowed you whole." He stepped aside, gesturing her in, and she found herself moving forward, drawn by an invisible current. As she passed him, a subtle scent reached her, not cologne, but something more primal. A blend of sea air, sun-warmed skin, and a hint of wild herbs. It was intoxicating, unsettling. The interior of the villa was a revelation. High ceilings with dark, exposed beams soared above cool flagstone floors. Arches led to unseen rooms, and the walls were adorned with muted tapestries and vibrant, abstract paintings that seemed to pulse with life. The furniture was minimal, but elegant, crafted from dark wood and upholstered in natural linens. But the true masterpiece was the view. A panoramic sweep of the Aegean through a series of floor-to-ceiling arched windows at the far end of the grand hall, where the horizon bled from fiery orange to deep indigo. "It's breathtaking," she managed, her voice a little hushed. Rhys chuckled, a soft rumble in his chest. "It has a way of doing that. Come, let me show you to your room. You must be tired from your journey." He led her through a labyrinth of hallways, the air growing cooler as they moved deeper into the villa. His bare feet made no sound on the stones, a stark contrast to the subtle click of her own sandals. She found herself watching the play of muscles beneath his linen shirt, the way his shoulders moved, the easy grace of his stride. There was an inherent sensuality in his movements, an unself-conscious masculinity that pulled at something deep within her. Her room was a sanctuary unto itself. A vast, four-poster bed, draped with sheer white linen, dominated the space. Its mattress looked impossibly soft, inviting. A private balcony overlooked a secluded garden, where the scent of night-blooming jasmine was even more potent. A wide, arched window offered a glimpse of the moon, already a sliver of silver in the darkening sky, casting an ethereal glow on the restless sea below. "I hope this suits you," Rhys said, his voice softer now, almost a whisper. He stood just inside the doorway, his presence filling the generous space without being intrusive. "It's perfect, Rhys. More than perfect." She turned to face him, a genuine smile gracing her lips, feeling a lightness she hadn't experienced in months. "Thank you." His gaze lingered on her, warm and assessing, making her feel seen in a way that was both unnerving and exhilarating. She was acutely aware of her travel-worn clothes, the faint sheen of perspiration on her skin, the slight disarray of her usually impeccable bun. Yet in his eyes there was no judgment, only a quiet appreciation. "A light supper will be served on the terrace in about an hour. If you'd like to join me," he offered. "Otherwise, I can have something brought to your room." The thought of solitude was tempting, but the idea of sharing the evening with him, of prolonging the unexpected spark that had ignited between them, was more so. "The terrace sounds wonderful." "Excellent." His smile returned, a slow, captivating curve of his lips. "Rest. You've earned it." With a nod, he was gone, leaving behind only the lingering scent of him and a quiet hum of anticipation in the air. Elara stood for a moment, absorbing the silence, the beauty, the sudden awareness of her own body. She shed her clothes, letting them fall in a heap, and stepped into the cool marble bathroom. The shower was a cascade of warm water, scented with local herbs, washing away the dust of travel and the lingering tension in her muscles. She let the water run over her skin, imagining his eyes on her, the warmth of his gaze. It was a forbidden thought, a dangerous one, but it bloomed in her mind nonetheless. Later, refreshed and clad in a simple flowing silk dress, the color of seafoam, Elara followed the faint strains of music to the terrace. The villa was alive with a soft, magical glow. Lanterns hung from ancient olive trees, casting intricate shadows, and the air hummed with the symphony of crickets and the rhythmic sigh of the waves. Rhys was already there, seated at a small round table set for two. He had changed into a fresh linen shirt, a darker shade of charcoal, that made his tan skin stand out in vivid contrast. A bottle of wine, condensation beading on its glass, sat chilling in an ice bucket. As she approached, he rose, his movements fluid and graceful. "You look radiant, Elara." His eyes, the color of warm honey under the lantern light, swept over her, a slow, appreciative journey that left a blush rising on her cheeks. "And you, Rhys, look perfectly at home." He gestured to the chair opposite him. "This place is home. It's been in my family for generations." He poured them both a glass of wine, a crisp, dry white that tasted of sun and distant citrus groves. "To new beginnings and old sanctuaries." She clinked her glass against his, the delicate sound echoing in the night. "To that." The conversation flowed easily, surprisingly so. They spoke of the villa's history, of the local legends, of the simple pleasures of island life. Elara found herself opening up, sharing anecdotes from her demanding career, her long-held dream of escaping to a place like this, a place where art and nature intertwined. Rhys listened intently, his gaze unwavering, occasionally interjecting with a perceptive question or a wry observation. He spoke of his own life, a tapestry woven with threads of travel, of restoring ancient buildings, of the quiet satisfaction of working with his hands. There was a depth to him, a quiet strength that was immensely appealing. As the plates of fresh fish, grilled vegetables, and a vibrant salad were cleared away, the moon had climbed higher, bathing the terrace in a pearlescent glow. The music, a melancholic Greek melody, seemed to wrap around them, enhancing the intimacy of the moment. Rhys leaned back in his chair, his eyes fixed on the horizon, where the moonlight silvered the waves. "Do you ever feel," Elara began, her voice soft, almost lost in the night sounds, "that you're constantly chasing something, but you're not entirely sure what it is?" He turned his head slowly, his gaze finding hers again. "All the time. It's the human condition, I think. A restless spirit. But sometimes the chase leads you to exactly where you need to be, even if you didn't know you were looking." His eyes held hers, a silent question in their depths. The air between them thickened, charged with unspoken currents. She felt a magnetic pull, a desire to bridge the small distance separating them. His presence was a palpable thing, a warmth that radiated across the table, drawing her in. "What brought you to Villa Althea, Elara?" he asked, his voice a low murmur, barely above a whisper. She hesitated, then decided to be honest. "Burnout, mostly. A feeling of emptiness, despite achieving everything I thought I wanted. I need to reconnect with something real, something visceral, to find my own rhythm again." She looked out at the sea, then back at him. "And you? What keeps you here, in this beautiful solitude?" He smiled, a wistful, almost melancholic curve of his lips. "The villa has a way of holding on to you. It's more than just a house, it's a living thing, with its own heart. It requires tending, nurturing, and it offers something in return that you can't find anywhere else." He paused, his gaze dropping to her lips, then back to her eyes. "Peace, a sense of belonging, and sometimes unexpected encounters." The last words hung in the air, weighted with meaning. Her breath hitched. She felt a blush creeping up her neck, a delicious heat spreading through her veins. He was not just speaking of the villa now, he was speaking of them. Rhys reached across the table, his fingers gently tracing the rim of her wine glass. The subtle brush of his skin sent a shiver down her arm, a jolt of electricity that was both startling and profoundly pleasant. His touch was light, almost imperceptible, yet it felt like a brand. "Tell me, Elara," he murmured, his voice a husky whisper, "what does your rhythm feel like now after a day here?" She swallowed, her throat suddenly dry. "It feels slower, deeper, and a little bit wilder than I remembered." Her gaze met his, and in their depths, she saw a reflection of her own burgeoning desire. The wildness she spoke of was mirrored in his eyes, a flicker of untamed passion that both thrilled and intimidated her. He pushed his chair back, the soft scrape of wood on stone barely audible. He rose and walked around the table, stopping beside her. The scent of him, that primal blend of sea and sun and something uniquely masculine, enveloped her. He reached out, his hand hovering inches from her arm, a silent question in his eyes. She didn't move. Her heart hammered a frantic rhythm against her ribs. His fingers finally settled on her forearm, warm and firm. His thumb stroked gently, a feather-light caress that sent goosebumps prickling over her skin. The silk of her dress was no barrier to the heat of his touch. He leaned in closer, his dark hair brushing her temple, his breath a soft caress against her ear. "Sometimes," he whispered, his voice a low rumble that vibrated through her, "the truest rhythm is found in another, a harmony that silences all the noise." His gaze dropped to her lips again, lingering there, a silent invitation. She could feel the heat radiating from his body, the subtle tension in his frame. The air crackled with an undeniable energy, a potent mix of anticipation and desire. Her own lips parted slightly, a soft gasp escaping her. He moved closer still, his other hand reaching out to cup her jaw, his thumbs stroking the soft skin beneath her ear. Her head tilted back instinctively, offering herself to his touch. The world narrowed to the space between them, the scent of jasmine and Rhys, the sound of the waves, and the insistent pounding of her own heart. His eyes, dark and intense, searched hers, seeking permission, seeking acceptance. She saw a hunger there, a raw, undeniable craving that mirrored her own. Her fingers curled into the silk of her dress, clutching it tight. She wanted to surrender, to lose herself in the promise of his touch, the unspoken desires that shimmered between them. He lowered his head, slowly, agonizingly slowly. Her eyes fluttered closed, her breath held captive in her chest. She felt the warmth of his breath on her lips, then the soft, electric brush of his mouth against hers. It was a tentative touch, a question more than a kiss, but it ignited a fire within her, a slow burn that spread through every nerve ending. His lips moved, a gentle exploration, deepening the kiss with a quiet confidence. She responded instinctively, her own lips parting, inviting him in. And he came, a soft groan rumbling in his chest as his mouth claimed hers with a newfound urgency. His hand in her hair, tangling in the silken strands, his thumb still stroking her jaw, sending shivers down her spine. The taste of him was intoxicating. Wine, sea, and something uniquely masculine, a flavor she craved with an unexpected ferocity. It was a kiss that promised everything and nothing, a swirling vortex of sensation that pulled her deeper, stripping away the layers of her carefully constructed self. She felt herself melting into him, into the moment, into the delicious unknown. His body pressed closer against hers, the hard planes of his chest against her silk-clad front, sending a jolt through her. She gasped, a soft sound lost in the press of their mouths. He broke the kiss slowly, reluctantly pulling back just enough for their lips to still brush, for their breaths to mingle. His eyes, still dark with desire, stared into hers, raw and vulnerable. "Elara," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "I think your rhythm just found its counterpoint." Her heart was thundering, her body alight with a desperate yearning. She wanted more. She wanted everything he was offering, everything he represented. This was not the quiet solitude she had sought, but something infinitely more potent, more dangerous, and utterly captivating. She reached up, her fingers trembling as they traced the strong line of his jaw, feeling the slight stubble beneath her touch. The night was alive with a new kind of magic now. A magic woven from desire and discovery, from the whispers under the moonlit canopy of the villa. And she knew with an absolute certainty that her journey had only just begun. His breath hitched, a soft, almost imperceptible sound that reverberated through her fingertips, up her arm, and settled like a shiver deep within her core. His eyes, the color of ancient secrets and moonlit seas, widened fractionally, reflecting the surprise and the burgeoning question that bloomed between them. He didn't pull away. Instead, he leaned almost imperceptibly into her touch, a silent invitation, a profound acceptance that stole the air from her lungs. The world outside them, the chirping crickets, the rustling leaves, the distant murmur of the sea, faded into a soft hum, a backdrop to the singular potent reality of their proximity. Her thumb brushed lightly over the rough stubble, a small, intimate gesture that felt both audacious and utterly natural. A spark, bright and undeniable, ignited in the space between them, warming her skin, quickening her pulse to a frantic rhythm that echoed the pounding in her ears. He watched her, his gaze intense, searching as if plumbing the depths of her soul. She felt utterly exposed, yet fiercely alive, a woman on the precipice of something magnificent and terrifying. The silence stretched, thick with unspoken desires, with the weight of possibility. It was a silence that promised everything and nothing, a delicious agony that tightened her chest and sent a flush of heat creeping up her neck. Then, slowly, his hand lifted, not to push her away, but to mirror her own gesture. His long, calloused fingers, surprisingly gentle, reached out and cupped her cheek, his thumb tracing the delicate curve of her jawline. The touch was electric, sending rivulets of fire through her veins. Her skin tingled, alive and hyper-aware of his warmth, his texture. His eyes dropped to her lips, a silent, powerful question that left her breathless. She trembled, a faint tremor that ran through her entire being, but she didn't retreat. Instead, she leaned into his palm, her own eyes falling shut for a fleeting moment, savoring the exquisite sensation of his skin against hers, the raw honesty of the moment. When her eyes fluttered open, they met his again, a silent surrender passing between them. He moved then, slowly, deliberately, giving her every chance to pull back, to break the spell. But she couldn't. She wouldn't. The magnetic pull was too strong, too ancient, too right. His head tilted, his gaze still locked with hers, and then, with a soft exhalation that fanned across her lips, he lowered his head. The first touch was feather-light, a tentative exploration, the brush of his lips against hers, soft and questioning. A gasp escaped her, a whisper of air that mingled with his. Her lips parted slightly in invitation, and he accepted, deepening the kiss with a languid grace that stole her very breath. It was not a forceful kiss, but one of profound tenderness, of simmering passion held in check, a slow, intoxicating dance of discovery. His lips were warm, surprisingly soft beneath the slight roughness of his stubble. She tasted the faintest hint of mint and something uniquely in him, a primal, alluring scent that filled her senses and made her dizzy. She responded instinctively, her own lips moving against his, a tentative exploration that quickly bloomed into a desperate need. Her fingers, which had been resting on his jaw, now tangled themselves in the soft hair at the nape of his neck, pulling him closer, deepening the delicious pressure. A low groan rumbled in his chest, a sound that vibrated against her, sending shivers of pure delight through her. His other hand, the one that had been cupping her cheek, now slid down, tracing the delicate line of her throat, then resting lightly on her shoulder, a possessive, comforting weight. The kiss deepened, becoming more insistent, more hungry. It was a kiss that spoke of long-held desires, of loneliness finally acknowledged, of two souls recognizing a profound connection. Her mind reeled, all coherent thought dissolving into a haze of sensation. The warmth of his mouth, the seeking pressure of his tongue, the soft rasp of his stubble, the intoxicating scent of his skin. It was a kiss that promised release, surrender, and a journey into the unknown depths of passion. When they finally broke apart, it was with a shared reluctant sigh, their lips still tingling, their breaths ragged. His forehead rested against hers, his eyes still closed, as if savoring the afterglow, the lingering echo of their intimate communion. Her fingers remained tangled in his hair, unwilling to let go, her body humming with a delicious, aching awareness. "Ilara," he murmured, his voice a low, husky rumble, barely above a whisper. Her name on his lips sounded like a prayer, a revelation. She opened her eyes slowly, meeting his gaze. They were still dark, still intense, but now softened by a vulnerability that mirrored her own. I didn't expect this," she confessed, her voice breathy, still reeling from the unexpected intensity. A faint, wry smile touched his lips. "Nor I. Solitude, they say, is best enjoyed alone. But perhaps," he paused, his thumb gently stroking her cheek, "some solitude is meant to be shared." He pulled back just enough to look at her, his hand still cupping her face. The moon, now higher in the sky, cast them in a silvery glow, illuminating the sincerity in his eyes. "My name is Adrian," he said, as if it were a new introduction, a formal declaration after such an informal intimacy. "Adrian," she repeated, tasting the name on her tongue, finding it as satisfying as the kiss. "It's beautiful here." She gestured vaguely to the moonlit gardens, the villa's elegant silhouette against the darkening sky. But her eyes never left his. She was speaking of more than just the scenery. He nodded, a hint of pride in his expression. "It has its charms. I inherited it from my grandmother. She always said it was a place for healing, for discovery." His gaze held hers. A silent question as to what she might discover here. With him? "I came seeking a different kind of discovery," Ilara admitted, a small, self-conscious laugh escaping her lips. A quiet escape from everything, from expectations, from demands, from a life that felt increasingly hollow. She hadn't meant to reveal so much, so quickly, but with Adrian it felt effortless, natural. His presence seemed to strip away her usual carefully constructed defenses. He listened intently, his expression unreadable, yet deeply attentive. "And have you found it?" he asked softly, his thumb tracing the delicate curve beneath her eye. She shook her head slowly. "Not quiet solitude, no. Something else, something more." Her gaze flickered down to his lips, then back to his eyes, acknowledging the potent truth of their connection. He lowered his hands, though his fingers brushed hers, a lingering touch that was both a caress and a promise. "Perhaps the quiet you sought was merely a prelude to the symphony you truly needed," he mused, his voice a silken balm. He gently took her hand, his fingers intertwining with hers, a firm, comforting grip that sent a jolt of warmth through her. "Come," he said, his gaze sweeping over the moonlit terrace. "Let's find a place to sit to talk, unless you'd prefer to return to your room." The question was polite, deferential. Yet she sensed the unspoken hope beneath it, the quiet longing that mirrored her own. "No," she said quickly, her voice firm. "I'd like to stay. To talk." He smiled then, a genuine warm smile that reached his eyes and made her heart flutter. "Good." He led her to a secluded alcove on the terrace, where a wrought iron bench was nestled amongst fragrant jasmine vines. The air here was heavy with their sweet perfume, mingling with the subtle salty tang of the sea. They sat close, their shoulders brushing, their joined hands resting between them, a silent anchor in the swirling currents of their newfound connection. The initial rush of passion had softened into a warm, comfortable intimacy, a space for shared whispers and hesitant confessions. "Tell me," Adrian began, his voice low. "What is it you're escaping? If you feel comfortable sharing, of course." His tone was gentle, inviting, devoid of judgment. Ilara took a deep breath, the jasmine scent filling her lungs, steadying her. "My life in the city," she began. "It was demanding. I work in publishing. Long hours, constant deadlines, the relentless pressure to be on. I loved it once. The thrill of bringing stories to life, of connecting writers with readers. But lately, it felt like I was merely a cog in a very large, very impersonal machine. I lost myself somewhere along the way." She paused, searching for the right words. "And then, a relationship ended. Not dramatically, just fizzled out. We realized we were two people walking parallel paths, never truly intersecting. It made me question everything." She turned her head, meeting his gaze. "I felt empty. Like a beautiful vase, perfectly crafted, but hollow inside. I needed to find the substance again. So I booked this trip, this villa, seeking solitude, hoping to reconnect with Ilara, the woman beneath the titles and the expectations." Adrian listened without interruption, his thumb gently stroking the back of her hand. When she finished, he nodded slowly. "I understand. The world has a way of stripping us bare, if we let it. This place, it was meant to be a sanctuary for my grandmother, who was an artist. She found her truth here, amongst the olive groves and the sea. She always said that true connection, whether with oneself or another, requires stillness. And his eyes held hers. "It takes courage to admit you're lost, and even more to seek a new path." "And you, Adrian?" she asked, emboldened by his openness. "What is your story? You live here, this magnificent place. Is it your sanctuary too?" A shadow, brief and fleeting, crossed his features before he offered a small, enigmatic smile. "In a way, yes. My grandmother left the villa to me with a specific instruction, to continue its legacy as a place of retreat, of inspiration. I manage it, oversee the gardens, the upkeep, ensure every guest finds the peace they seek. It is a demanding role, but a rewarding one." He paused, his gaze drifting over the moonlit landscape. "But beyond that, my own story is perhaps less compelling than yours. I've spent much of my life tied to this land, to its rhythms. It is my anchor, my purpose. I find my own solace in its beauty, in the quiet satisfaction of preserving what my ancestors built." "But surely," Ilara pressed gently, "there's more to Adrian than just the custodian of this villa? Do you have dreams, ambitions, beyond its walls?" He chuckled softly, a warm, resonant sound. "Ah, Ilara, you cut straight to the core, don't you? Yes, there are dreams. There are always dreams. I am a musician, you see, a composer of sorts. The villa, the landscape, the very air here, it inspires me. I spend my nights, when the guests are asleep, pouring melodies onto paper, trying to capture the essence of this place. Her eyes widened in surprise and delight. "A musician? How wonderful! Why didn't you say so?" "It's not something I often share," he admitted, a hint of shyness in his tone. "It's a private world, one I tend to keep separate from my duties here. Most guests come seeking peace, not a performance." "But I would love to hear your music," she said, her voice earnest. "More than anything." His gaze softened, a warmth spreading through his eyes that made her heart ache. "Perhaps one day," he promised, his thumb tracing a slow, mesmerizing pattern on her skin. The conversation flowed easily after that, drifting from the practicalities of villa life to their shared love for art, for nature, for the quiet moments that truly nourished the soul. She learned about his grandmother, a spirited woman who painted vibrant canvases in the very garden they sat in. He spoke of the local olive groves, the process of making their own oil, the traditions of the village nestled in the hills. She, in turn, told him more about her work, the books that had moved her, the authors she admired, the quiet joy of holding a newly printed book in her hands. Hours melted away like sugar in hot tea, the moon climbing higher, casting longer, deeper shadows. The air grew cooler, carrying with it a refreshing crispness that only enhanced the sweet perfume of the night-blooming flowers. Despite the chill, Ilara felt a profound warmth radiating from Adrian, from the gentle pressure of his hand, from the easy flow of their conversation. There was a profound sense of connection, a feeling of finally being seen, truly understood, in a way she hadn't experienced in years. Adrian possessed a quiet strength, a thoughtful intensity that drew her in. He listened with his whole being, his eyes reflecting her words, his occasional interjections insightful and tender. As the night deepened, a comfortable silence settled between them, punctuated by the soft sounds of the nocturnal world. Her head was tilted against his shoulder, a natural progression of their closeness, and his arm had gently draped around her, pulling her closer still. The world had shrunk again, encompassing only the two of them, bathed in moonlight, warmed by an unspoken understanding. "It's late," she murmured, a pang of reluctance in her voice. The thought of breaking this spell, of returning to the solitude of her room, felt like a betrayal. Adrian tightened his arm around her, his chin resting lightly on her hair. "It is," he agreed, his voice a low rumble against her ear. "But time seems to behave differently here, doesn't it? It stretches, it bends, it allows for moments like these to truly sink in." He shifted slightly, turning his head so his lips brushed her temple. The soft touch sent a shiver through her, a renewed awareness of the potent desire that still simmered beneath their comfortable intimacy. "Are you cold?" he asked, his breath warm against her skin. "No," she whispered, though a delicious chill did run through her, a mixture of the night air and the yearning he evoked. "Not really." He leaned back slightly, his eyes searching hers in the dim light. "Ilara," he began, his voice dropping to a near whisper, "I feel something extraordinary with you. Something I haven't felt in a very long time." Her heart thrummed, a frantic bird trapped in her ribs. "Me too, Adrian," she confessed, her voice barely audible. "More than extraordinary. It feels inevitable." His gaze deepened, becoming an intense magnetic pull that left her breathless. He slowly raised his hand, his fingers tracing the delicate line of her collarbone, then slipping beneath the strap of her sundress. His touch was light, almost reverent, yet it ignited a fierce heat wherever he made contact. She shivered, a delicious tremor that ran through her entire body. He watched her reaction, his eyes dark with a desire that mirrored her own. "May I?" he asked, his voice husky, a low growl that sent shivers down her spine. The question was unnecessary, a courtesy, for her entire being was screaming yes. She nodded, unable to speak, her throat tight with anticipation. Slowly, deliberately, he began to push the strap of her dress down, his fingers brushing against her bare skin, sending a wave of goosebumps across her shoulder. The soft fabric slid down, revealing the elegant curve of her shoulder, the delicate prominence of her collarbone. He leaned in, his lips brushing against the newly exposed skin, a feather-light touch that promised so much more. A soft moan escaped her lips as his mouth moved to the hollow of her throat, a warm, moist kiss that sent fire through her veins. Her head fell back slightly, exposing her neck, an offering he accepted with a low, appreciative hum. His lips grazed her pulse point, sending it racing, then moved lower, to the delicate curve of her shoulder. His hand, which had been on her strap, now slid to her waist, pulling her closer, pressing her body against his. She could feel the hard planes of his chest against her breasts, the warmth of his thigh against hers. The scent of him, clean and subtly masculine, filled her senses, intoxicating her. Her own hands, almost of their own accord, found their way to his chest, feeling the solid warmth of muscle beneath his linen shirt. She felt the steady beat of his heart, a rhythm that now seemed perfectly aligned with her own. He pulled back slightly, his eyes burning into hers. "You are exquisite, Ilara," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "Like the first bloom after a long winter." His words, more than any physical touch, ignited a profound sense of longing within her. She felt beautiful, desired, utterly alive. He leaned in again, this time seeking her lips with a renewed hunger, a deeper intensity. The kiss was all-consuming, a tempest of sensation that swept away all thought, all hesitation. His fingers found the zipper of her dress, slowly, deliberately, pulling it down inch by delicious inch. The cool night air brushed against her skin as the fabric gave way, a sensual whisper against her back. Her breath hitched as the dress slid lower, pooling around her waist, revealing the curve of her back, the delicate line of her spine. He broke the kiss, his eyes still locked with hers, dark with unbridled desire. With a slow, tender movement he reached behind her, unfastening her bra. The soft lace fell away, and she felt the exquisite release as her breasts were freed, their delicate weight against the soft cotton of her dress. His gaze dropped, lingering on the curve of her exposed breasts, and a gasp escaped her. She felt vulnerable, yet empowered, thrillingly exposed beneath his ardent gaze. His hand, warm and strong, cupped one breast, his thumb brushing over the sensitive peak. A jolt of pure pleasure shot through her, a delicious ache spreading through her core. "Beautiful," he breathed, his voice rough with passion. He leaned in, his lips tracing a path from her collarbone to the swell of her breast, lingering there, teasing her with the promise of more. Her fingers tightened on his shoulders, clinging to him as if he were her only anchor in a suddenly spinning world. Her body was humming, alive with a desperate, burgeoning need. The jasmine-scented air was thick with their mingled breaths, with the unspoken yearning that pulsed between them. This wasn't just physical desire. It was a profound yearning for connection, for release, for the kind of intimacy that transcended the physical. Adrian's lips found hers again, a kiss that was both tender and fiercely passionate, a prelude to a deeper surrender. He lifted her gently from the bench, her dress falling further, pooling around her feet. She stood before him, clad only in her underwear, her body alight with a fierce, intoxicating heat. He pulled her close, her bare skin against his linen shirt, the rough texture a delicious contrast to the softness of her own. Her breasts pressed against his chest, her nipples hardening with anticipation. She could feel the hard lines of his body, the unwavering strength that promised both comfort and exquisite pleasure. He led her slowly, without a word, across the terrace, towards a more secluded area, where a soft plush daybed was nestled beneath a canopy of stars. The air here was even more fragrant, more intimate, as if the very plants were whispering secrets to them. As they reached the daybed, he stopped, his hands cupping her face once more, his thumbs tracing the curve of her cheekbones. His eyes, dark and luminous in the moonlight, held a depth of emotion that both thrilled and humbled her. "Ilara," he whispered, his voice thick with desire, "this is not just a passing moment. I feel it, don't you? Something profound has awakened between us." She nodded, her eyes shining with unshed tears, tears of overwhelming emotion, of gratitude, of pure, unadulterated joy. "Yes, Adrian," she whispered back, her voice trembling. "More than I ever dared to imagine." He lowered his head, his lips hovering just above hers. Then let us explore this awakening, my Elara. Let us discover where this magic leads. With a soft sigh, he gently guided her onto the plush cushions of the daybed, the cool fabric a contrast to the heat of her skin. The moon cast long dancing shadows around them, creating a private world, a sacred space for their unfolding desire. He knelt before her, his gaze still fixed on hers, a silent question, an unwavering promise. The night was still young, and their journey, she knew, had only just begun. The whispers under the moonlit canopy of the villa were growing louder, carrying secrets of passion and discovery, promising a night that would forever redefine her understanding of solitude and connection. Her breath hitched, a tiny, almost inaudible sound that was swallowed by the vastness of the night. His eyes, dark pools reflecting the moon's silver, held hers captive, a silent dialogue passing between them that transcended words. In that moment, the world narrowed to just the two of them, suspended in a bubble of anticipation and unspoken longing. She felt a tremor run through her, a mixture of exquisite vulnerability and burgeoning power. Her fingers, almost unconsciously, reached out, drawn by an invisible thread to the dark silk of his hair. She let them drift, lightly, over his temples, feeling the warmth of his skin beneath. It was her answer, her silent assent, a surrender not of will but of self, into the promise of his devotion. A slow smile, almost imperceptible, touched his lips, a flicker of triumph and tenderness. He took her hand, the one that had just graced his hair, and brought it to his mouth. His lips, warm and soft, pressed against her palm, sending a shiver that started deep within her and spread through every nerve ending. He kissed her fingertips, one by one, a reverence in each touch that made her feel cherished, adored. Then his tongue, a fleeting warm caress, traced the delicate lines of her palm, eliciting a gasp she barely managed to stifle. It was a promise of deeper intimacy, a taste of what was to come, a fire sparking in her veins. Still holding her hand, he rose slowly, never breaking eye contact, until he stood before her, a magnificent presence of sculpted muscle and intent. He drew her closer gently, until the tips of her breasts brushed against his bare chest, a sensation that sent a jolt of pleasure through her. The air crackled around them, thick with an electric energy. His free hand reached up, cupping her jaw, his thumb stroking the delicate skin just beneath her earlobe. Her head tilted back instinctively, her eyes fluttering closed for a moment as she savored the exquisite sensation. "You are breathtaking," he murmured, his voice a low, gravelly whisper that vibrated against her skin, a private symphony meant only for her. More beautiful than any dream. Her eyes opened, meeting his once more, filled now with a raw, untamed desire that mirrored his own. There was no need for pretense, no room for hesitation. This was real, visceral, a connection that had been waiting to ignite. His gaze dropped to her lips, lingering there. A silent invitation. She parted hers slightly, a silent plea, a yearning that had been dormant for too long. He lowered his head slowly, tantalizingly, giving her time to savor each millimeter of diminishing space between them. She felt the warmth of his breath on her mouth, the subtle scent of his skin, fresh air, a hint of spice, and something uniquely him that made her dizzy. Then, finally, his lips met hers. It was not a forceful kiss, but a tender exploration, a soft pressing that spoke of reverence and discovery. His mouth moved over hers with a gentle persuasion, a question he allowed her to answer. And she did. Her lips softened, parted further, inviting him in. The kiss deepened, slowly, exquisitely. His tongue, hesitant at first, then more confident, traced the seam of her lips, seeking entrance. She granted it, eagerly, her own tongue meeting his in a dance of tentative passion. A sigh escaped her, a sound of pure contentment that was absorbed into the kiss. His arms wrapped around her waist, pulling her flush against him, her body molding to his. She could feel the hard planes of his chest, the tautness of his stomach, the solid strength of his thighs. Her hands found their way to his shoulders, then tangled in the thick hair at the nape of his neck, pulling him closer still, deepening the kiss until it was a consuming fire, a dizzying spiral of sensation. The world outside their embrace faded into a distant hum. There was only the taste of him, warm and intoxicating, the feel of his skin against hers, the soft rasp of his stubble, the rhythm of their breathing, growing more ragged with each passing second. He angled his head, exploring new depths, new angles, each movement a revelation. He tasted like desire, like moonlight, like the promise of everything she had ever yearned for. When he finally broke the kiss, it was with reluctance, his forehead resting against hers, their breaths mingling, their eyes still closed. Magnificent, he breathed, the word a caress against her lips. He pulled back slightly, just enough to look at her, his thumbs stroking the soft skin of her bare back where her dress had fallen away. "Let's go inside," he whispered, his voice husky with desire. "Where we can truly be alone." She nodded, unable to articulate a response, her senses overwhelmed. He took her hand, his fingers intertwining with hers, and led her across the moonlit terrace. The cool stone beneath her bare feet was a welcome counterpoint to the heat that flared within her. The garden, with its fragrant blooms and whispering leaves, seemed to watch them, holding its breath. They moved through the sprawling villa like shadows, the soft glow of interior lights casting long, inviting paths. Each step was a continuation of the dance, a slow, deliberate journey into the heart of their shared desire. He led her not to the grand salon, but to a more intimate wing, where the air was scented with lavender and old wood. The floors were polished parquet, gleaming softly, reflecting the light from sconces along the walls. The door to her chamber stood open, as if anticipating their arrival. The room was bathed in a gentle, ambient light, perhaps from a lamp left purposefully low, or the spill of moonlight through the tall arched windows. A large, four-poster bed, draped with sheer white linen, dominated the space, a silent invitation. The air was soft, hushed, charged with a subtle perfume that was both exotic and familiar. He paused just inside the doorway, turning to face her. His hands went to the straps of her dress, which had slipped to her elbows. With a tender grace, he eased the fabric down her arms, letting it pool at her feet, a silken whisper against the cool stone. She stood before him, clad only in a delicate lace chemise that offered tantalizing glimpses of her form. The fabric, thin as a breath, clung to her curves, accentuating the swell of her breasts, the narrowness of her waist, the gentle curve of her hip. His gaze swept over her. Unhurried, appreciative, a silent adoration that made her skin tingle. She felt no shame, no self-consciousness, only a profound sense of being seen, truly seen, for the first time. Her own eyes devoured him in turn, his broad shoulders, the powerful lines of his chest, the lean, athletic grace of his body, now fully revealed in the soft light. He reached out, his fingers tracing the delicate lace of her chemise, following the curve of her collarbone, then dipping lower, towards the valley between her breasts. His touch was light, feather-soft, yet it ignited a fierce heat beneath the sheer fabric. He unfastened the tiny pearl buttons one by one, a painstaking process that drew out the exquisite anticipation. Each click of a button was a tiny drumbeat in the symphony of her awakening desire. When the last button was undone, the chemise parted, revealing the soft, pale skin beneath, the delicate swell of her breasts, the dark allure of her nipples, already taut and aching. He pushed the fabric gently from her shoulders, letting it slide down her body, a whisper of silk and lace against her skin, until it joined the dress in a soft heap at her feet. She stood before him completely nude, bathed in the soft, intimate glow of the room. A tremor ran through her, a delicious frisson of vulnerability and power. She met his gaze, unflinching, her eyes shining with a mixture of desire and nascent trust. He stepped closer, closing the final distance between them. His hands found her waist, drawing her into his embrace once more. The contact of their bare skin, chest to breast, belly to belly, thigh to thigh, was electric, a shock wave of pleasure that coursed through her. She gasped, arching into him, feeling the delicious friction, the hard planes of his body against her soft curves. His head lowered, his lips finding the hollow of her throat, tracing a path of fire along her collarbone. He kissed the sensitive skin there, then moved lower, to the curve of her shoulder, his teeth gently nipping, sending shivers down her spine. Her fingers tangled in his hair once more, pulling him closer, desperate for more of his touch, more of his taste. He lifted her effortlessly into his arms, a feat of strength that surprised and thrilled her. Her legs instinctively wrapped around his waist, her body fitting perfectly against his. He carried her towards the bed, his movements smooth and purposeful. The soft mattress dipped under their combined weight as he gently laid her down, then followed her, settling beside her, his body a warm, comforting weight against hers. The bed was a haven, a cloud of softness and scent. The sheets were cool and crisp against her heated skin, a tantalizing contrast. He propped himself up on one elbow, his eyes never leaving hers, a silent question, a deep adoration in their depths. "My love," he whispered, the endearment a soft caress against her heart. He reached out, his hand tracing the line of her hip, then moving upwards over the curve of her stomach, until his fingers brushed against the sensitive skin of her inner thigh. Her breath caught. Each touch was a deliberate stroke, a building of tension that was both exquisite and almost unbearable. He leaned down, his lips finding hers once more, a deep, slow kiss that spoke of longing and surrender. This kiss was different from the ones before. Deeper, more possessive, yet still tender, still reverent. His tongue danced with hers, a teasing, playful exploration that sent sparks flying through her. His hand continued its journey, moving higher on her thigh, eliciting a soft moan from her. She arched into his touch, her hips lifting instinctively, seeking more. He broke the kiss, his gaze heavy-lidded, his eyes burning with an intensity that promised untold pleasures. "You are a vision," he murmured, his voice thick with desire. He leaned down, his lips brushing against the sensitive skin just below her ear, sending shivers through her. "And tonight, you are all mine." Her heart hammered against her ribs, a wild drumbeat of anticipation. She felt herself unraveling, piece by piece, under his gaze, under his touch. All the barriers she had unknowingly erected around her heart, around her desires, were dissolving, leaving her open, vulnerable, and exquisitely alive. His fingers found the soft, sensitive skin between her legs, a light, teasing touch that made her gasp. He didn't rush, didn't demand. Instead, he simply caressed, explored, mapping the contours of her desire with an artist's precision. Each stroke was a revelation, awakening dormant sensations, bringing her to the precipice of an unknown pleasure. She tangled her fingers in his hair, pulling gently, her head thrown back, a soft moan escaping her lip. Her body was alive, humming with a vibrant energy she had never known. The air around them was charged, thick with the scent of their mingled arousal, of warm skin and burgeoning desire. He leaned down, his lips finding the hollow of her throat once more, then moving lower to the delicate curve of her collarbone. His teeth gently nipped, sending a delicious tremor through her. He kissed the swell of her breast, the soft skin of her décolletage, his breath warm against her. Then, his mouth found her nipple, a soft, suckling caress that sent a shockwave through her entire being. Her back arched, her hands gripping his shoulders, her fingers digging into the firm muscle. A cry escaped her, a sound of pure, unadulterated pleasure. He suckled gently, teasingly, his tongue swirling around the taut peak, sending exquisite sensations coursing through her. He alternated between one breast and the other, lavishing attention on each, driving her to new heights of sensation. Meanwhile, his hand continued its masterful work between her legs, tracing circles, applying gentle pressure, exploring her most intimate places with a practiced reverence. She was wet, aching, trembling with a need so profound it bordered on agony. Her hips bucked, an involuntary response to the overwhelming pleasure. "You are so beautiful," he whispered against her skin, his voice hoarse, ragged with his own rising desire. So responsive. She could only whimper in response, lost in the swirling vortex of sensation. Her mind was emptying, her thoughts dissolving into a haze of pure feeling. There was only his touch, his taste, the exquisite friction, the blossoming heat deep within her. He lifted his head, his eyes burning into hers, a silent question once more. She knew what he was asking, and her answer was an emphatic, silent yes. She reached for him, her hands finding the hard planes of his chest, her fingers tracing the path of his abs, then moving lower, to the source of his own undeniable arousal. He groaned, a deep, guttural sound that thrilled her. He shifted, rising above her, supporting himself on his forearms, his body poised above hers. The sight of him, strong and magnificent, his eyes dark with desire, sent a fresh wave of heat through her. "Are you ready, my love?" he whispered, his voice thick with emotion, his gaze locked with hers, seeking her full, conscious consent, even in the throes of their passion. She nodded, unable to speak, her eyes wide with a mixture of anticipation and trust. She opened herself to him, physically and emotionally, ready to receive him, ready to merge with him, body and soul. He moved slowly, deliberately, giving her time to adjust, to absorb the exquisite sensation of their joining. The first touch was a breathtaking friction, a gentle pressure that expanded her, filled her. She gasped, a sound of profound pleasure and wonder. He paused, allowing her body to acclimate, his gaze still fixed on hers, ensuring her comfort, her pleasure. Then, with a slow, controlled movement, he began to push deeper, filling her completely, stretching her, claiming her in the most profound way. A low moan escaped her, a sound that was half pain, half pure ecstasy. She wrapped her legs around his waist, pulling him closer, needing to feel every inch of him, to absorb him fully into her being. He began to move, a slow, sensual rhythm that built with each thrust. Her body responded instinctively, meeting his movements, her hips rising to meet his, creating a delicious friction that sent waves of pleasure through her. The bed beneath them creaked softly, a rhythmic accompaniment to their escalating passion. Their breaths grew ragged, mingling in the charged air. Whispers, half-formed words of love and longing, escaped their lips, absorbed into the intimate space they had created. He leaned down, burying his face in her neck, pressing kisses to her skin, his body a heavy, glorious weight on hers. The rhythm deepened, quickened, becoming more urgent, more demanding. Each thrust was a revelation, a deeper plunge into shared pleasure. She felt herself spiraling, higher and higher, towards an unknown peak. Her nails gently raked his back, her body arching, consumed by the overwhelming sensations. He lifted his head, his eyes blazing, reflecting the intensity of their union. He watched her, watched the pleasure bloom on her face, watched her body convulse with each powerful stroke. It was an offering, a gift, a communion unlike anything she had ever experienced. "Look at you," he rasped, his voice raw with emotion. "So beautiful, so free." Her vision blurred, tears of pleasure pricking at her eyes. She was free. Free from inhibition, free from fear, free to experience the depths of her own sensuality, guided by his loving hand. The world outside, the moon, the villa, the night, all faded away. There was only this exquisite dance of bodies and souls, this powerful, undeniable connection. The tension coiled tighter, drawing her in, pulling her towards the edge. She felt it building, a tremor starting deep within her core, spreading outwards, consuming her. She cried out his name, a desperate plea, a joyful surrender. He matched her intensity, his movements becoming more forceful, more urgent, driving her higher, pushing her past the brink. She felt the first tremors, a ripple of exquisite contractions, deep within her. Her body convulsed, arching against him, her back bowing, her fingers clenching, digging into his shoulders. A wave of pure, unadulterated ecstasy washed over her, consuming her, shattering her into a million glorious pieces. Her senses exploded, every nerve ending firing, every part of her being vibrating with an intensity that was almost unbearable. He held her close, pressing his lips to her temple, whispering words of encouragement and adoration as she rode the wave of pleasure. He continued his rhythm, matching her descent from the peak, drawing out the exquisite aftershocks, ensuring her pleasure was complete, profound. As the last echoes of her climax subsided, leaving her breathless and wonderfully sated, she felt him gather his own strength, his body tensing, his breaths coming in short, sharp gasps. He leaned into her, his final thrusts deep and powerful, a guttural groan tearing from his throat as he too found his release, spilling himself into her, a primal offering that bound them even closer. He collapsed onto her, his weight heavy but welcome, his body trembling with the aftermath of their shared passion. They lay intertwined, their skins slick with sweat, their hearts pounding in unison, the only sounds in the room the ragged echoes of their breathing. The air was thick with the scent of their lovemaking, a potent perfume of intimacy and release. She ran her fingers through his damp hair, pressing soft kisses to his temple, to his shoulder. She felt utterly cherished, profoundly loved, irrevocably changed. The whispers under the moonlit canopy had indeed delivered their secrets, and the night had only just begun to redefine everything she thought she knew. This was not just pleasure, it was a profound communion, a joining of two souls that felt destined, sacred. She held him close, savoring the warmth of his body against hers, feeling the lingering tremors of their shared ecstasy, knowing that this was merely the first chapter in a story that promised infinite passion and discovery. The villa, once a refuge of solitude, now hummed with the echoes of their love, a vibrant living testament to the power of connection and the beautiful journey that stretched endlessly before them. She felt the steady rhythm of his heart against her ear, a counterpoint to the fading echoes of her own. His breath stirred the hair at her temple, warm and familiar, as if it had always belonged there. The moon, a silver disk, cast an ethereal glow through the open balcony doors, illuminating the gentle rise and fall of their chests, painting the room in shades of pearlescent grey. Every nerve ending in her body hummed with a profound sense of contentment, a delicious ache that spoke of deep fulfillment rather than longing. He shifted slightly, his arm tightening around her waist, pulling her impossibly closer until there was no space left between them. She felt the smooth plane of his back against her palm, the slight dampness of their skin where they met, a testament to the glorious heat they had generated. He nuzzled into her hair, inhaling deeply. "You are everything," he murmured, his voice a low, gravelly rumble that vibrated through her, a private symphony of pure devotion. A soft sigh escaped her lips, a sound of pure, unadulterated pleasure. She didn't need words. His touch, his scent, the very weight of him beside her, communicated all that needed to be said. This wasn't just physical release. It was a soul-deep recognition, a feeling of coming home to a place she hadn't known she was searching for. She pressed a gentle kiss to his shoulder, tasting the salty sweetness of his skin, a flavor that would forever be intertwined with this moment of exquisite vulnerability and strength. They lay tangled together for what felt like an eternity, suspended in a timeless bubble of shared intimacy. The world outside the villa, with its demands and distractions, had ceased to exist. There was only the gentle caress of the night breeze, the distant whisper of the sea, and the profound silent language of their bodies entwined. Eventually, lulled by the quiet symphony of their joined breaths and the comforting warmth of his embrace, she drifted into a sleep more profound and peaceful than any she had known. When she awoke, it was to the gentle kiss of sunlight on her eyelids and the soft murmur of birdsong from the garden. For a moment, she was disoriented. Then the weight of his arm across her waist, the warmth of his body pressed against her back, brought a wave of blissful recognition. She turned slowly, careful not to disturb him, and found his eyes already open, watching her with a tenderness that stole her breath. "Good morning," he whispered, his voice still thick with sleep, a slight stubble shadowing his jaw. He reached out, his fingers tracing the line of her cheekbone, then tangled in her hair, pulling her gently forward for a kiss. It was soft, lingering, tasting of sleep and desire, a promise of the day ahead. "Morning," she replied, her voice husky. A blush crept up her neck as the memories of the night before flooded her, vivid and intoxicating. But there was no shame, only a deep sense of pride and joy in what they had shared. She felt utterly seen, utterly desired, utterly loved. He sat up, pulling her with him, so they leaned against the plush headboard, still wrapped in the luxurious sheets. The morning light streamed through the open doors, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air, transforming the room into a golden haven. He ran his hand down her arm, his touch electric, before intertwining their fingers. "I could get used to waking up like this," he said, a playful glint in his eyes that was quickly softened by a profound sincerity. "Me too," she confessed, leaning her head on his shoulder, feeling the solid strength of him. "It feels right. More than right." He squeezed her hand. "It feels like destiny. Like every path, every choice, led us here, to this villa, to this moment." His words resonated deeply within her, echoing her own unspoken thoughts. They spent the morning in a delicious haze of postcoital bliss. He made strong aromatic coffee, which they drank on the sun-drenched terrace overlooking the cerulean sea, still wrapped in soft robes. The air was warm and sweet, with the scent of jasmine, the gentle lapping of waves a soothing soundtrack to their burgeoning love story. They spoke little, content to simply obey in each other's presence, their hands often finding each other, their gazes lingering, communicating volumes without a single word. Later they walked barefoot along the private beach, the soft sand a velvet caress beneath their feet, the cool kiss of the waves a refreshing counterpoint to the lingering heat between them. He picked up a smooth, sea-worn pebble and placed it in her palm, a silent token of their connection. She looked at him, her heart overflowing with a tenderness she hadn't known she possessed, a passion that burned brighter than any sun. The villa, once a refuge of solitude, now hummed with the echoes of their love, a vibrant living testament to the power of connection, and the beautiful journey that stretched endlessly before them. As the sun began its slow descent, painting the sky in fiery hues of orange and rose, they found themselves back on their balcony, his arm around her, her head resting on his chest. This was not merely the end of a night, but the radiant dawn of a shared life, a tapestry woven with threads of desire, devotion, and an infinite unfolding passion that promised to burn ever brighter with each passing day.